Today's guest on the Winning Teams podcast is David Lindsay, who hails from Sydney in Australia. Now, David's background is very much a professional athlete. I won't list off all of them because I talk about it at the very beginning of the interview, but a very, very varied and an exciting range of sports that he has been involved with, and he's brought all of that together. And his business, he works as a coach, he works as a speaker, motivational speaker, and really works very closely with companies to really help them in terms of performance. He's got his own process which he uses for people, and I won't steal his thunder by sharing what that is. But we really get into talking about how you can really become an effective team member, how you can bind a team together for a common purpose, and how you can actually keep that energy level. And he's got some great tips in terms of what things that you can do on a day-to-day basis that keep that energy up and keep you motivated and engaged and performing at a very high level. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're enjoying it, please, wherever you are listening to your podcast, please give us a review, because that helps us to get out to more people, which is what we are trying to do. But in the meantime, sit back and listen to the very energetic and very entertaining David Lindsay. David, thank you so much indeed for being a guest on the Winning Teams podcast today. You're hailing all the way from Sydney in Australia, but it's fantastic to have you here.
Thank you very much, John. I'm super excited to be part of this podcast today and hopefully give your listeners some tools, some strategies that they can take away straight away to up their energy, to up their vitality, just to increase their vim, vigor, and passion in their life.
Well, that was the reason that I just thought you would be a great candidate for it. But you say you're a motivational speaker. You're also a personal trainer in Sydney. But your background is pretty fascinating. You've been a professional rugby league player, professional arm wrestler, which I thought was interesting, black belt in Wing Chun, belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you've competed in several cage fights. So you're not a guy to mess with by any stretch of the imagination. So quite a sporting background, which is obviously appropriate as a personal trainer. Can I ask you, just out of curiosity, was there a favorite sport in there? Was there one that you really had a deep passion for?
All of them had their stages. Like, I grew up playing soccer when I was younger, t-ball, baseball, got into rugby league when I was 12. And whenever I'm doing anything, I don't do anything by half. So when I was rugby league, I was super passionate about that. I was training hard for that, and I got picked up by South Sydney and got contracted across to them. Unfortunately, I suffered 2 knee reconstructions playing rugby league, which that forced me to stop playing that, because obviously having 2 knee reconstructions, I thought maybe it's not the sport for me. Then, because I was incredibly big and strong, a bloke came up to me out of the blue at the shopping center at Westfields and goes, "Have you ever done arm wrestling?" And I thought it was such a weird question to ask. And I go, "Yeah, of course I have. I've done it at the bar for drinks."
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And he goes, "How do you go?" And I go, "Well, I don't pay for drinks." And he goes, "Have you ever thought of doing it as a sport?" And I went, "I never even knew it as a sport." But then got involved in that. And again, jumped both feet in, did a lot of training for that. Was on my way to some professional arm wrestling tournaments in America. Unfortunately, I didn't get to there because I was mucking around with a mate in Corfu and snapped my humerus. And it was a loud crack. Holiday over, dream of doing arm wrestling over, and flew straight back to Sydney. When they put a plate in my arm became paralyzed, which at that point, I was 22 at that point. I'd been doing personal training for a couple of years, and I thought that had been taken from me. I thought being an athlete had been taken from me, because who's going to want a trainer or an athlete that can't use their arm? And I was devastated. But then after 4 months, I started getting some movement back, and I'm a competitive guy in everything I do. And across the road from where I did my Cert 3, Cert 4 personal training, there was a Kung Fu school. So I went up and I did that, and I loved the competitive nature of it. and I worked my way up to get my black belt, which was all well and good, but I wanted to really test out my skills, my strengths, and the system in the real world. So it's no good going and having street fights. That's no good at all. So I went and did MMA and did cage fighting. And with that, my passion up until this day as well, along with speaking, is wrestling. Because the mindset from wrestling across to real life, there's so many similarities. And yeah, that's where my passion is. And I guess it always has been from when I was a little tyke, because my grandpa, he was a wrestler and always got us wrestling whenever we were over at his place. So that's where I'm at the moment. So I still do a lot of training, because I believe we need to train to not just feel better, look better, but to perform better. And also, like I said, to increase your vitality.
Yeah. So what you used all of those. That's really interesting to go from one to the other, because obviously there were a lot of setbacks in that. There were, you were on a path, and then suddenly, you have an injury that puts a pay to that. You've got to regroup, and you've got to kind of find your purpose again, which is very relevant. But when you look at what you've taken from the sports world into your coaching business and your work, what are the things that you've brought from that have really been impactful when you're working with clients?
Yeah, because there are so many similarities between a sports team and a business team. And that is what I really try and get people to get it, start thinking about it, that they're not a boss. They're not necessarily a dictator. Be a coach. Because when you coach people from up on top, you just get the benefits are so much bigger that way than if you try and dictate to people. Also in sports, you have different positions that require different skill sets and different mindsets. In business, you have different positions that require different skill sets and different mindsets. So in rugby league, we don't have the halfback doing heavy hit-ups as we would for the front rowers. Same as in business, you don't have an accountant that's out there doing sales. Each area has their different skill sets, different mindsets. So just to be aware of that. And yeah, as I said, being a coach compared to being a boss, you just get so much more from your people when you celebrate them, when you bring the team together. So, and that's sort of what I speak about as well.
Yeah. So sometimes I often wonder, do we oversimplify when we go from what we take from sport? And I would share a lot of what you've said there, in the sense that, because in the sport, the objective is very clear. It's to win. It's to win the match. It's to win that league. It's to win that competition, whatever it might be. So the goal can be absolutely crystal clear.
Yeah.
But what you find sometimes in businesses, that the goals, particularly, I mean, okay, if you own the business and if you're a business, it's different. But if you're employed, sometimes the goal isn't as clear, and winning, what does winning look like, isn't as explicit as it might be in a sport. How would you agree with that? And how do you actually, if so, how do you actually manage to actually get that clarity for somebody?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And Simon Sinek did it brilliantly when he talks about the finite game, where there's rules, where there's a start, there's a finish, and the infinite game, where the rules are a bit blurry. There's no distinct finish line. How do you know when you're in the right way? Because, if you might have a super smart accountant and they're fudging the numbers, so you don't know today if you're doing it right or if you're doing it wrong. You find out in 6 months. So there's that delayed, not so much gratification, but delayed results. So what I really come in and do is really try and get people making sure that you're all pulling in the same direction. Having not even necessarily a pinpoint idea of what the end goal is, but even just a fair idea of what the end goal is. So at least you're all going in the same direction, knowing that your part in the cog, that is part of a bigger machinery. And with big machines, when you take even a little cog out, it stops and it affects the entire machine. So knowing that each and every cog is as important as the next. So play your part exceptionally well, and then the end result, so long as you're going in the right direction. Because as you said, there's no referee blowing the whistle, going game over. So just keep moving forward, keep edging away, keep doing that 1% each and every day better than you did yesterday. And that's really the goal in this. and to do it with a smile, to do it with vim, vigor, and passion, as I said before.
Yeah. One of the things that I found very interesting to do with teams is to actually do an exercise where you're talking, okay, what does winning mean for the business or for the team? But also, what does winning mean for me personally, right? Because, you know, it's not just about the business winning or the team winning. I've also got to win as well.
Yeah.
And but the win for me may be very different to what the win for the team looks like, and that's okay. But
100%,
how
yeah.
important is it to actually make sure that there is real clarity about what winning means for me personally as well?
Yeah, that's where you really need to have ultimate clarity on that, because the end goal, that's for the big machine to be going, but you need to be able to tick things off, because not just ticking things off gives you that rush of endorphins, you know, that high feeling, that excitedness, where you can high five your buddies around you going, I got another sale, I got this, I got that. But it also keeps your motivation going, because it's not just about, you need to have self-determination, you need to have self-efficacy, you need to have that self-confidence, but being able to tick those things off, celebrate with your teammates, that keeps the motivation going. So yes, you do have to have ultimate clarity in what a win is for you. And then, because that will help the team move forward.
Yeah. You've developed a process which you call the 5 steps towards improved vitality.
Yeah.
It's snap, tap, clap, nap, and recap. I'm sure I've actually said that in the wrong order, but anyway.
You
But
got it
maybe
down, Pat.
did it? Okay, all right. That was more luck than anything else, David. I can tell you that much. But maybe can you explain exactly what that 5-step process is and how it works?
Yeah, certainly. So the first one is creating routines and rituals to snap into action, because it's about doing the same things each and every day so that you're ready physically, mentally, and emotionally. So you don't just walk into the office, clock on, go to your seat, sit down, and you're like that. No, it's like in sports, in fighting. I can't afford to waste 5 or 10 seconds, let alone minutes, before snapping into action. So it's utilizing the tools we have around us. Our phones, we all have our phone within reach 24/7, 365. So utilize the power of music to snap you into action. So that's the first one. The second one is napping for peak performance. And a lot of people go, what are you talking about? I'm just going to keep grinding out. I'm going to keep grinding out. I'm going to keep grinding out. But when you do that, you grind out, and then you burn out. And there's, like, when I do my talks, I ask who had a lunch break. And a lot of people keep their hands down, going, no, I worked my way through lunch again. They say it's a badge of honor. Whereas I say it is, you need to delegate. Poor time management, because studies show that we're so much more productive if we have a lunch break. You'll notice that I keep sipping my water, staying hydrated. Sometimes it's a simple fact as stepping away from your computer, taking a big, deep, slow breath. That can be enough for you to catch up with your thoughts and stopping making those little yet costly mistakes. So the second step is nap. The third step is tap. And tapping doesn't mean giving up and quitting, but it's finding out why something didn't work. And then you learn, grow, and evolve. Now is a perfect time to do that. Coming out of the past 3.5 years, this is a time when we can be either an innovator or an early adapter with certain things in your work. And if it doesn't work, tap, learn, grow, and evolve. You tap, you go talk to your coaches. Like when I was fighting, I might get caught in an arm bar, and I can either fight it and risk breaking my arm, or I can fight it to a certain point and then I tap. I go back to my coach. How did they catch me in that arm bar? How can I avoid it? And then again, bit by bit, I get better at stopping the arm bar. So it's about that learning from mistakes, learn, grow, and evolve. And then the fourth step is clap, celebrating the time, effort, and dedication that the team puts into their project. Because you may have heard the saying before that a champion team will beat a team of champions. Because, as I said, I've played at South Sydney Rugby League, and I know when I played with mates that I've been with for years, we won the competition. And that's because you do more for people that you know, like, and trust. Even when I'm super competitive, I don't know, I seem to get this superhuman speed and strength when it's my mate alongside of me, and it's the exact same in work. Then the fifth step is all about recap, which is continuous, never ending improvement in everything we do. In sports, as you said, it's easy because there's a definite start, there's a definite finish. I can write down what worked, what didn't work. But then what we do as a team, we sit down and we discuss this. They get hand out of the sheets, but what it does, it opens lines of communication, not just top to bottom, but more importantly, bottom to top, where I get feedback from the players. And I love knowing what worked, but I love more important about what didn't work. Because when you find out what didn't work, then you can work on a solution so it does work. So again, as a team, you get that 1, 2, 3% better each and every time. So that's the 5 steps. Routines and rituals to snap into action. Napping for peak performance. Tapping, learning, growing, and evolving. Clapping, celebrating, bringing the team together, and recap. All about continuous, never-ending improvement.
It's a great system. Can I lean into 2 of those? Because one you were talking there, and David, about napping, right?
Yeah.
And that almost sounds like a contradiction in terms in high performance, but I absolutely agree with you. However, for many executives listening, they go, I mean, and you know it in your work, and I know it in my work, they go day to day, back to back with meetings. They're going from one meeting to another, to another, to another. So that while, yes, we can say we should kind of imitate copy what the athletes do, because they train, they rest, you know, they don't train hard all the time, because you can't do that. They don't run a marathon every day, all of that sort of stuff. But for executives, it's actually very difficult at times for them to actually take that time out. So what are the things that people can do to actually force them to really actually take that, what you say, nap, but is that kind of time out to recharge and rebuild?
Yeah. One thing that I love is walking meetings, because what that is, that also takes the pressure off people, because it's not face to face, where some people, they might feel intimidated like that, but walking alongside of people, getting outside, because that does a few things. That gets you moving, which also opens up different parts of your mind that you wouldn't think about if you're sitting at the office. It gets you moving, where emotion is led by motion. So you're walking with power, passion, and purpose, and everything follows. It also gets you in some fresh air, because when we're in the office a lot, you know, we're sitting like that, so we can't take big cleansing breaths. When we're out walking, we get breathing deeper. And when you breathe deeper, you can perform better. You also have more clarity of mind. So that's one. And also scheduling. It doesn't have to be long, 10 minutes. You put your headphones on, you put on a 10-minute guided meditation, and you just concentrate on breathing. So that gives your mind a time to, instead of going 100 miles an hour, to settle. Because when your mind settles, that's a time when you can come up with these ideas that you would have never thought of if your mind was constantly going. And it's only, like I said, 10 or 15 minutes is required. About big, deep, slow breathing, headphones on, close your eyes, and there we go. Then when you get up, you snap back into action. And a lot of it as well goes into beyond work. What do you do after work? A lot of people I've spoken to, they go, I need to have a wine, or I need to have a beer to take the edge off so that I can sleep well at night. It's about creating routines and rituals, not just to snap into action, but to get a good quality sleep, so that when you wake up in the morning, you're jumping out of bed. You're not rolling out of bed, pulling yourself out. Because when people have 2, 3, 4 glasses of wine before they go to bed, they might go to sleep. It's more like a passing out, but their body doesn't go into the REM state. It sort of flutters around there. Plus, you also have to go to the toilet halfway through the night, where that ruins your sleep pattern as well. So having structured things like that, as having a 10-minute, 15-minute break where you can just clear yourself. Walking meetings, getting outside, getting some fresh air is essential for especially for the executives, the people that are high up there, where it's incredibly stressful. I understand that, but that's when you make small yet costly mistakes, when your mind's going a million miles an hour. So that's just a couple of things, you know, they can take away straight away.
Yeah. We hear a lot of talk and both inside and outside organizations about employee well-being. And, you know, I mean, and no one's going to say, oh, well, I'm not going to pay any attention to that, because you just can't say that. But,
Yeah.
but do you think, is there more talk than substance to that? Or do you think our companies really taking it seriously? And are there any examples of organizations that you can think of, you don't have to mention who they are, but organizations that things that they're doing it really well?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people, they do talk a big game, but then when you go and look behind the curtains, you see that, you know, it's all smoke and mirrors, really. So there are quite a few things with companies that I've been to where they organize teams and they go and they play touch football, they play soccer, they even play frisbee, and anything where you're doing stuff like that, where it's you're relating with people outside of work, that builds a tighter bond, and it builds that know, like, and trust factor. Because that's where, when you're outside on your lunch break, not only are you being active, you're going out there, you're moving around, but you're also communicating to people about things other than work. I know of a couple of places that I've been to as well, where they have a martial arts instructor come in and they get them to do a class during their lunch break. And this is a fantastic way to utilize that. So, like, during it as well, they're constantly rehydrating, where people don't realize in the Western society, we're chronically dehydrated. So rehydrating, getting out, doing activities like that, where it brings everyone together. Because I've done programs like that as well, where I'd go into a company. That's not along the lines of what I speak about, but I've gone into companies and I trained their staff. And what I loved about it was that it didn't matter if you're a C-level, if you're a manager, if you're a floor staff, they all came together to me at the same level. So the hierarchy was me. I was a boss at that point, because that's my area of expertise. They got to be the normal, whoever they are, instead of having to be a boss in that situation. And it allowed them to build relationships that help foster an improved work environment.
And the fitness programs that you do, because I know that you do go into organizations. How well, when you're brought in to do that, do people turn up with kind of, oh, this is fantastic, or do people turn up and go, gee, I was just told to be here? I mean, how well do they embrace it? And also, when they have embraced it, what are the positive things that you've seen as a consequence of doing that?
Yeah, with everything I do, for me, I don't force people to do it. So if someone comes up and goes, you know, I'm so busy, I got this, go, okay, I'm going to be doing this, and there's 20 or 30 people here doing it. You can either join it and be part of the team and release some of that stress that you've got, because you're pulling your hair out, going, I'm so stressed, and yet you don't do anything to relieve that stress. And also show the importance of, when you're physically active, it does something which very few things do, because when you expend energy for training, for doing sports, not only are you expending it, but you're creating energy as well. So when people come back after that, they're jumping out of their skin. They're so excited, and it does really bring the teams together. So you see, when people that are fit, when people that are strong, they have more clarity with their mind. Also, they tend to have less sick days, and they're more productive.
Mm.
And with one of my mates as well that I'm doing speaking with, he said it's funny, coming from a sporting background as well, you can tell people that have that sporting background, because they more see themselves as part of a team as opposed to a whole lot of individuals. And when you see yourself as part of a team, you want to do more so that the team moves forward. And that's so many positives on the back of that. And when you're enjoying work, when you're doing it with your mate alongside of you, you just have a lot more fun, and you're a lot more productive as well.
Yeah.
So it's
Absolutely.
a win-win situation.
Which way? David, what you're doing is great work. Before I ask you we wrap up, and before I ask you where people can contact you, how they can get in touch with you and avail of your services, two questions I ask everybody. One is a book that you maybe are reading or have read that's had an impact. What's the book, and what was the impact?
Yeah, well, this book, I've got it here because I finished it not that long ago, reading it for the third time. It's such an easy book to read, but Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. With that, it just talks about the importance of taking ownership of your actions, and not just taking ownership of your actions, but also taking ownership of your team's actions. Because if they didn't do it correctly, or maybe it's bad communication on my part. So it teaches you so many different levels. But for me, it's all about extreme ownership. I have to turn up each and every day to be at my best in order for my troops to be at their best. I need to be at my best when I'm speaking for the audience to get the most from it. So it's about taking that ownership and settling for nothing less.
Okay. Second question that I always ask, and I know is about daily rituals. And obviously, I know from what you've been talking about, you do have daily rituals. So what are your daily rituals? What are the things that you do to have you up and ready and functioning at a high level for the day?
Certainly. And it all starts the night before. Like I said before, it's not about having 4 or 5, 6, 8 glasses of wine to go to bed. I make sure that I have a sleep routine as well, so that I know when I go to sleep. It's not necessarily about longer sleep. It's about better quality sleep, because I get maybe, 5.5, 6 hours of sleep a night. I get up at 3 and I get music going on. I put my headphones on so I don't wake up anyone else in the family. And then I'm out of the house by 3:30 so that I'm at the gym before 4 o'clock. And I don't do this because all these other people are doing it. I do it because that's time for myself. That's time before I get the distractions from people calling me up going, David, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do that? It's that time really for myself before anyone else gets in the gym and distracts me, because they know who I am. They know my background and they go, David, why are you doing this? I need to have that time to myself. As I said, during lunch break, I get outside, I put on headphones and I put on guided meditations as well to calm my mind. But that's what I do each and every morning is I get up, utilize the power of music, the power of posture to snap me into action, get me pumped up and excited. Like I was listening to some music just before we came on so that I could give my energy to you and to the listeners.
That's good. So you get up at 3 o'clock every day, every morning, do you? Wow, that's an early start.
And also on the weekend as well, because I want to get into that habit. I don't want to be in that habit for 5 days and then have 2 days where I sleep in, because when I sleep in, that means I'll go to bed later. When I go to bed later, that means I'll get even less sleep. And it's just that vicious cycle. So have that routine, do it each and every day. And that's how you can benefit the most from it.
Well, that's fantastic. David, where can people get in touch with you? We'll put everything in the show notes, but if they're listening right now, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way would be to go through LinkedIn, because I'm quite active on that. I put up a lot of videos on LinkedIn. So find me at David Lindsay there. I'm the one in the blue suit throwing a pink soccer ball. So that's how I am, because my background is sports and that's what I relate things to. Or they feel free to get me on email at David or my website, david@davidlindsay.com.au. Or also that's what I just said, david@davidlindsay.com.au. The website's www.davidlindsay.com.au. Feel free to get in contact, because I'm truly looking to get this message far and wide. And I'm actually looking at going over to the States to do a speaking tour over there as well, as we spoke about earlier.
I think you'll have a fantastic time doing that. David, it has been a great pleasure to have you. I love your message. I love your tips. They're practical. Anybody can take them on, and we know they work. So thank you for your time and really appreciate you being with us.
My pleasure, John. Thank you very much for spending the time with me. And like I said, I hope the listeners got something from this and can take something away to snap into action right from the second they step away.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks, David. Have a great day.